Well, hello, 418 fam. I hope you're excited to watch this episode of People You Should Know. We're going to be talking about Christianity versus Islam. Are all religions the same? And how do we know what we believe is true? So I'm here with Dax Van Der Wal. Where's that last name from?
It's Dutch.
It's
So
Dutch.
a lot of people
Ooh,
think German
that's
initially.
what I was going to go with.
Yep, from the Netherlands somewhere. But
All
yeah,
right.
thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, he has the YouTube channel, and it's just your name, right? Dax Van Der Wal?
Yeah, just Dax Van Der Wal.
Yeah, go check it out. And it specifically answers questions about Islam and Christianity and those kind of things. So get ready to jump into this. If you're watching this on YouTube, we will have most of this interview here, but the full version is going to be on our app, 418 Revolution app. So I want to invite you to join that community. We want to help you know God deeply and live your faith boldly. So, Dax, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And what is 418? I just have to ask.
Yeah. 418 comes from the verse Luke 4:18. And honestly, our youth ministry was based off of it. And it's basically Jesus when he first declares, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, set at liberty the captives." And so our thing has always been, this is what Jesus has done for us. And then he mandates us to go out and do that for other people. So that's where 418 comes from. And yeah, that's
Sounds
it.
good. My goal now is to somehow reference that verse in this conversation.
Okay.
That'll be the win. So
all right, here's some things we're going to talk about today. Here's just some things we're going to run through. We're going to talk about, what do you say to people who believe all religions are the same? What's the big difference between Christianity and Islam? What are some misconceptions we have about Muslims or the Islamic faith? Things like that. So we're going to be jumping into that, y'all. But first of all, what I really need to know is, Dex, what's your favorite rom-com? That's what I really need to know at this juncture of our discussion.
Okay. That's good. Really, the most important theology about me, for sure.
Exactly.
Rom-com. I would say I actually really love rom-coms. So I think the first one that comes to mind would be Crazy Rich Asians. I think came out in 2019, but it's beautiful movie. Has this one wedding scene that's just like mind-boggling, and I feel like everyone low-key has this dream of like meeting someone and then they're low-key rich, and then you just find out, oh, you have billions. Oh, cool. Let's do this thing. So that one. Hopefully, there's a second one coming out soon too. Looking forward to that. But yeah.
Okay. My wife got me hooked on the old school 90s rom-coms when they were first, that was like the big deal.
Yeah.
So You've Got Mail. Have you seen You've Got Mail?
I haven't. I think I started it. For some reason, Tom Hanks just isn't that guy to me. He's just not the rom-com.
Okay. Listen,
but
I mean,
if 90s.
He's in the whole movie. So if you don't like Tom
That's fair. Do you like When Harry Met Sally?
Okay. I have not seen When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
I need to. Have you seen When in Rome?
No.
Okay. That's
When
in Rome. Fantastic. So we know that also. What church do you go to?
Yeah, so I work at and attend Bayside Church in Roseville, California, and I work for Thrive College. I don't know if that reads backwards.
Yeah, I see it.
Wait, but yeah, so I work for the college program at Bayside Church.
Okay, and what is that? What's the Thrive College program?
Yeah, so Thrive College is Bayside's college internship and discipleship program. So we have about 40 students that we meet weekly. I help run the chapels every week. We're teaching theology, talking about the Bible, God, basically how to be young disciples of Jesus in the postmodern Western world. So that's what I get to do, and I love it. If you're in college, check it out. So
awesome. Is it just thrivecollege.com, or what's the website for that?
I should definitely know that. I think if you just Google Thrive College, it should pop up, or go to Bayside Church website, Bayside Church online, and then through there you can find it. But,
okay. I know also it's on Instagram. I did look it up on Instagram, so you can find it there too. So go check that out if you're interested, if you live in that area, or if you want to go from the East Coast and hang out on the West Coast, do that too. Okay. All right, let's jump into this. I am very, very interested in this topic. You have the YouTube channel that compares and contrasts Christianity and Islam. What got you down that route?
Yeah, it was definitely a journey. It started when I was 18. That's when I would say I felt this call to ministry. And at that same time, which is not a coincidence, I started having doubts about my faith for the first time. So I feel that that was sort of the enemy. Is like, oh, Dax thinks he's called to ministry and to be some kind of pastor. Let's really make him question all of his beliefs at once. So that was an interesting year of my life. But I got into apologetics. I started trying to understand, why do I think Christianity is true? Is there any actual evidence of it? Does it have better evidence than other worldviews? And so I started an Instagram account and also had a TikTok for a while, just debating atheists and progressive Christians, Muslims, Mormons. And then I got banned off TikTok in, I think this was 2021 or something
Hey,
like that.
congratulations.
I know I made it. Really, that's like my crowning achievement. And don't even ask me why. Yeah, I just one day they're like, "You've been removed from TikTok." So
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. My mental health has been better since then. I will say
Okay.
that. And through that, there's a sort of pause a couple years ago where I was like, God, I love apologetics, but that's a massive realm. Should I focus on a specific people group? And I just really felt that he impressed Islam on my heart. And one of the ways that he did that is I read in this book that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, which statistically, if you measure it's by birth rates, it is
I
technically.
was gonna ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the key
So
is
Christians need to have more babies. That's what you're saying.
100%. It's a great strategy, honestly, if you want to spread an ideology.
I'm down.
So Muslims have a ton of babies. So Islam is, yeah, growing like crazy. And so I read this one quote where it's the future of the world, or the future of really the next 30 to 40 years. It's not Christianity versus atheism. It's Christianity or Islam. That's
Wow.
the question that's going to be posed for pretty much every culture, which was just mind blowing. And I'm like, it's time to start studying Islam and understand why it's growing and how to have these conversations.
Wow.
Yeah.
So okay, so you started your YouTube channel and it seems to be doing really well. I was like, wow, this guy's got some subscribers, some views. That's awesome. What do you say to people who, because obviously you went through this, they believe, or you were processing this question. All religions are the same, it kind of all points, it all goes the same direction if
Yeah.
if you're true to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's huge, especially, yeah, our culture. I would say it seems we're just very afraid of offending people.
Mhm.
And so we are in a space where it's like, if I think you're wrong, or if I say that you're wrong about a belief you have, especially related to identity, if someone says something about their identity and you say no, then that's just intolerant. How dare you? How could you say that? But there's this thing called truth, and truth is exclusive. So we have to say that at some level. My favorite example is as Christians, we would say Jesus died and rose again. Like that is a historical fact. That's what we would say. Most atheists would say that Jesus died, but that he didn't rise again.
Mhm.
But then Islam comes along and they don't even think Jesus died. The Quran, their holy book, says that it appeared that he died, but he didn't die. Only one of those claims can be true. Those three
Right.
things refute each other. Either Christians have it right, or atheists, or Muslims. And so we can actually evaluate the historical evidence and the Bible, Quran, whatnot, and we can see what the evidence actually points to. But what we cannot do is say, oh, they're just all true. They all say the same thing. They don't. They contradict each other. One is right and the other is wrong. So
That is something I really try to push with our teenagers. I'm a youth pastor. I try to remind them, like, listen, everybody can't be right. I don't care. Like, somebody's gonna die and go to the afterlife
yeah.
and discuss. Either it's nothing, or it's heaven, or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is. But
Totally.
somebody gonna be right, and a lot of people are gonna be wrong.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't
Yeah,
work
that's
that
good.
way.
Mhm.
We brought this up. Islam is the second biggest religion. You said it's the fastest growing, but by birth rate mainly. Um, tell us about Muhammad. Like, how did it start spreading in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Muhammad, this Arabian man in the 7th century. So this is about 600 years after Jesus. Jesus was in the 1st century. This is in the 7th century. So 600 years later, Muhammad comes along, and he says that basically his claim is that the angel Gabriel started to reveal stuff to him. So he claims to be a prophet, and hey, Jesus wasn't it. There's actually more revelation. So, right in the Bible, we have Genesis to Revelation, a beginning and an end. But actually, Muhammad comes along 600 years later and says, actually, there's more. This is the final revelation. And then he reveals the Quran, or he says that the Quran is the final revelation. So from there, I honestly haven't studied too much on the spread of Islam and the personal life of Muhammad. I'm kind of waiting till the end. Right now, I'm just studying the Quran and trying to see if there's any actual evidence that the Quran is a miracle, exact per se. But Yeah, that's the narrative. That's the claim that Muhammad came along and gave the Quran. And then from there, I guess the rest was history. So,
What do you feel like are misconceptions that I would say maybe Western world has about Islam or Muslims in general? Like we kind of think this about them, and it's like, ah, that may not be. Have you come across anything like that?
yeah, yeah, I would say so. I think the initial thing is probably it's very confusing. It's still all over the place, but on the one hand, there are verses in the Quran that seem very violent, that seem to essentially just fight those who are disbelievers, fight those who are not Muslims. Um, and that, but then interesting thing is like Muslims in the West specifically, they'll say that Islam is the religion of peace. It's all about peace. It's not about that at all. And it's interesting. That's actually relatively new. But at the same time, I would agree in that I think the Western media, social media, the news and whatnot has sort of blown that and exaggerated it a little bit. So I think what I would encourage Christians to do is don't look at Muslims as the enemy. Don't act like terrorism just defines all of Islam. Most of the Muslims I've met are not that. They're not violent. That's not their agenda. I'm still, I still have to study. Maybe that is what their teachings teach. And so in that way, maybe they're being disobedient to that. I'm yet to see that. But it's not helpful to just caricature all of Islam and say that they're all just wanting to do violence in the world. That's not helpful. And that's also not going to help us reach them, right? I think that's the other thing is I don't think it's helpful to look at Islam as the enemy necessarily.
Hmm.
Uh, when you look at what the Bible says about false prophets, if Muhammad is a false prophet, that means there is a spirit behind what he's doing, and it's some sort of demonic spirit or satanic spirit. Like there's something off about
Yeah.
that. And so I think we need to keep in mind it's not helpful to look at Muslims as at the enemy. They're being deceived. They're being deceived by this hollow philosophy or by this false philosophy. And so I think we need to remember they're not all that way. We can't just caricature Islam as this incredibly violent religion and just cast all of them aside. Our goal is to love them, respect them, treat them gently, not mock their beliefs, but at the same time, give them the truth, give them the gospel. So,
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little more in a minute because I think that's really important. Um, when it comes to the Quran, how
mhm.
do they view it versus how we view the Bible, or do they view it the same as how we view the Bible?
No, that's a great question. It's subtly different. So yeah, they would say that the Quran is the main miracle that proves Islam is true.
Mm,
We actually wouldn't really say that about the Bible. We love the Bible. The Bible is inspired by God, holy, amazing. But we would actually say that's Jesus. Jesus and his death and resurrection is the foundation of Christianity. So in some way, the way that Muslims view the Quran is the same way that we view Jesus. And so, yeah, so that's where in these conversations, in these defending the faith, in these like polemics, you know, Christians, we essentially try to show that the Quran is not a miracle because that's their main claim. And likewise, they try to attack Jesus, saying Jesus never claimed to be God or Jesus didn't die and rise. So that there's a subtle difference there, but that would be it.
what is it about the Quran that they're saying uh, is miraculous?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a few, I want to say there's probably four lines of evidence, but on the one hand, they would say there's scientific miracles in the Quran. So they would say, how could a man in Arabia in the 7th century know some of this science before its time? I'm in the midst of studying a lot of those right now. And it is, I'm very skeptical of them because essentially if science agrees with it, then they're going to say this is a scientific miracle. The Quran said this. But for example, the Quran also says that the sun sets in a muddy spring. And of course, they're going to say, oh, that's just a metaphor. That's not literal because it's unscientific. And so I'm very skeptical of that methodology because it's like, if science says that, then we're just going to say that's the scientific claim. If it's not, we're just going to sort of abandon that.
Right.
Uh, from there, there's not many prophecies in the Quran,
Hmm.
which is interesting because Deuteronomy 18 says that you will know a prophet is true if his prediction comes true, if he makes a prophecy and it comes true. But the thing about Muhammad in the Quran is he doesn't make many prophecies. There's, I would say, maybe two legit prophecies, and then we could go deeper into those if you want. But again, I don't think that they're necessarily impressive. They're nothing compared to like Isaiah 53, which details how the Messiah is going to come and die for the sins of the world. Um, and then lastly, I would just say I think more than anything, Muslims are just convinced that the Quran is just so amazing because of the Arabic. They'll say it's so eloquent. This Arabic is amazing. It's so beautiful, and because of that, we just know it's from God.
Yeah.
And I would just say that's difficult because it's very emotional and experiential. What if, first of all, I don't speak Arabic, and secondly, what if I'm just not impressed? It's not that beautiful to me. So you're appealing to your experience. I'm appealing to mine. Still, we need something more tangible here to go off of.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's interesting because I did hear, oh man, I think it was a Muslim guy, and he was talking with Jordan Peterson, and he was like
mm,
trying to convince him of it. And when he went to read the scripture, it wasn't Arabic, but it was he didn't just read it, he sang it.
yep,
And I thought it was interesting that that was part of the convincing, was how he was reading it.
yep, yep.
Um
Wow.
so that was interesting. When you were talking about uh the angel coming, and the false prophet, and that kind of thing. One of the things that has always intrigued me with Islam as well as Mormonism
Hmm.
is that, a lot of times they'll use for Christianity, that people won't die for something they know is a lie.
Yeah.
That's one of the arguments.
Yep.
But when you look, Joseph Smith actually was martyred for,
Sure.
being, what he taught, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes me just think, like, who's to say there wasn't an angel that appeared to Joseph Smith, or an angel that appeared to uh, Muhammad? Was it the angel they thought it was? No.
Mm.
Was it the thing they thought was happening? No, which is why Paul says, if an angel comes to you and
That's
teaches a
yep.
gospel that I'm not teaching you. So,
Mhm.
like, is it possible to be deceived in that way? Sure, it is.
Yeah.
And he goes, Look, we've given you the gospel.
Mhm.
And if anything says anything other than this, you need to say this is
That's it.
not true.
Absolutely.
Um, so I just think that is it's just an important thing. I think even for us as Christians, it may not be an angel, but you may have a professor that comes and tells you something that sounds really
Mm.
smart,
Yep.
but it disagrees with the gospel, it disagrees with the truth, and
Absolutely.
you need to be able to take that. Um,
Good. Mm.
how would you suggest a Christian shares their faith with a Muslim friend?
Mhm.
What does that look like? Because I mean, you're not just talking about, hey, I'm a Muslim. It's like, this is now, it's a family thing.
Mhm.
They're born into it. And so what would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hardest part. Even for Christians too. It's
Mhm.
like your identity is so wrapped up in your religion. And so if I leave, if my views change, are my parents still gonna love me? Am I still gonna have friends? There's a lot at stake. And
Mhm.
so I just pray that people would realize that truth is worth it and that basing your life on truth is worth it. And so yeah, I think honestly, the initial thing is you don't need to have all the answers. If you're like, I need to learn more theology or learn about the Bible, I need to know a ton of apologetics. You really don't to get started in these conversations. I think the biggest thing is literally asking people about their beliefs. So if
Mm.
you know someone, if they're Mormon, a Muslim, have conversations. Literally, just be a learner. You don't even have to give answers. Just, what do you think about this? Oh, really? You don't think Jesus is God? Why not? Why do you think Muhammad is a prophet? Ask questions, learn, and through that, um, just don't let it be a one-time conversation. I tell people, just step into this journey with someone. Say, hey, let's talk about some of this stuff. Oh, you asked me a great question. I don't know the answer. So go to someone like your youth pastor, or go to YouTube, go whatever, study a little bit, and then go back and then keep having a conversation about it. But I think people would be amazed at how effective just asking questions and just starting to talk about some of the stuff, where that can lead. I think the problem is that more than anything, people are just paralyzed and they're not going to try. And so we're just not talking about this at all with non-believers. Um, but yeah, just start asking questions, have these conversations, and along the way, learn and take the time to study, talk to youth pastor and whatnot. And even inviting people to church is always a great default. If you're like, I know nothing, but I'm passionate and I want to tell people about Jesus, invite them to youth group and get them to church, let the Spirit do his thing. And that could also be the most effective thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting you saying people are just paralyzed, and it is true. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of it is because, for some reason, I feel like the other religions in Western Christianity,
Mhm.
they do a really good job of uh proselytizing and discipling.
Mhm.
Maybe not proselytizing, but discipling of like just ingraining their children in this thing. I was reading a um some statistics, and it was saying that right now, uh, people of faith who go to their religious services, um, that 67% of Mormons go to their religious service versus 44% of evangelicals or
Mm.
people who claim to be a Christian.
Right.
And I think it's like 38% of Muslims go to their services. But I was like, it is crazy to me that you can create a culture in which 67% versus 44%. And it's like we're over here like we have the truth. We have the truth. And then we're not going to a place where we're going to learn,
Right.
and we haven't done the work of just what do we believe?
Absolutely.
And so, it's why I have the app, and I would say for y'all, it's so important to do things like go on to, Dax's, YouTube channel and just start learning, because it's gonna be more than just, "Okay, what do Muslims believe?" It's gonna help, firm up what you believe,
Absolutely.
what the Bible teaches, so that when you hear things that are contrary to that, you're not thrown off, and you know how to ask questions. You know how to, um just create an environment of learning, which I don't think we have too much these days.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
how would you suggest somebody has kind of that mentality of learning? Like if that needs to shift for them. I know I'm kind of throwing this one at you, but I you seem to be a learner, so I'm asking, how did you get
Yeah.
into that space?
Yeah, that's tough because I would say personal doubt was the thing that led me there.
Mm,
And so, I mean, yeah, if that's you, if you're listening, watching, if you're like, yes, I have doubts, I have these questions, it actually blows my mind. I was at a high school youth group a few years ago, and I sat down with a group of probably like 10 high school boys. And there were some small group questions, but I'm like, I'm not feeling those tonight. Like we should have to riff, we should have to improv, whatever. And I just asked them, what questions have you always had about Christianity that you've never asked before?
yeah.
The best small group I've ever been a part of. Every single one of them said, "What about the dinosaurs? I don't understand evolution. Can we accept it? Can we not?" And they started going through all these problems. And I'm like, guys, you've been walking in your faith. You've had these questions that are causing you doubts, and you're not asking anyone about them. Like, man, I think that's one thing. If you're listening and you're like, yes, I know my question, the thing that I've always wondered, I've never asked. What that's going to do, it's going to sit there, it's going to cause you doubt, and eventually, when life hits or when you start suffering or something like that, all of a sudden those doubts are going to come up, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, like my faith isn't that strong because I haven't sought out the hard questions, I haven't challenged myself in these ways. So whatever that question is, start now, go after it, because when your faith is tested and challenged, you'll have something solid to hold on to. Um, and I think the second thing too is like we even as ministers, as college pastors, youth pastors, we have to create environments to let people know that they can ask these questions. A lot of it is, do people feel safe? Do they feel ready? Um, they need to know that, hey, ask the honest thing right now. I'm not going to judge you. We're not going to throw you out if you ask about same-sex marriage. Let's talk about that. Let's have the hard conversations. And yeah, the last thing, to echo what you just said, I think I think what should motivate you is, yeah, you need to know the truth so that you can compare all of these other ideas against it. How do you know that Islam is true or not? Well, if you understand the Bible, if you have a basic understanding of the essentials, that's the key, because you
Yeah.
can compare Muhammad's message against the standard and Joseph Smith's message against the standard. And so for the rest of your life, you're not going to regret just taking a few years of your life to really understand the essentials of the faith, and you're going to be set from there. You can counter any false ideology. That's just, yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I think that's key too, because you're saying, compare, because I think in the past, um, churches have been scared to let people do that. And what I mean is, um, don't ask questions, because questions can lead to doubt. But in
Right.
reality, the lack of asking question leads to doubt. And
Hmm.
because you've never been taught you can ask a question, you just sit in it and you go, well, these people say it's not true. And they say it very confidently. It must not be true. And then you just, oh, I'm out. And it's like, no, there's so many answers. There's so many,
Yep.
people that are out there but we've never taught people. It's okay to ask questions.
Hmm.
It's okay to wonder. It's
Absolutely.
okay to, figure out why you believe what you believe.
Totally.
Um, yeah, it's this is something I'm actually very passionate about. I'm one of those people that would just
I can
sit
tell. I love it.
and just listen and learn because I want to teach, because I want them to know. There's a young lady in our young adults group, and she'll just come with these hard questions. And I'm
Mm,
just like, bring them.
that's great.
Let's go.
Great. Yeah.
Let's just talk. And one of my favorites is when they bring one and I'm like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I, psh, when you find out, let me know because
Yeah.
I want them I want them to have that. So, listen, if you want to see the rest of this interview, go download the 42 Revolution app. If you have Android, you can visit the link that we have below, get it online, save it on your home screen as a widget or whatever they call it on Androids. I don't have one. Um, we're going to talk real quick about what do you say to people who think the Bible has so many errors and discrepancies between manuscripts, but the Quran doesn't, and a couple other questions. So, go to the 42 Revolution app and finish that. Now, I know that's a big thing for them. They're like, listen, the Quran, all the Qurans are the same. The Bible has all these errors in their manuscripts. And da, da, da. How do you, what do you do with that?
Join the wrestling.